Hey fans, we're back, and today we're going to be looking at one of the best Detroit Lions and wide receivers ever to step into the National Football League and his untimely, out-of-this-world, shocking exit. But before we dive headfirst into all things Calvin, Megatron, Johnson, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button so that we can keep you up to date on all things football so you can receive our content as it drops. All done. All right, on to our video. After showing what type of dominant receiver he could be at Georgia Tech, and then ripping the combine to shreds with eye-popping numbers that we still haven't seen since, Calvin Johnson entered the league with as much hype as any athlete ever. Prototypical size, 6'5", 239 pounds, able to jump out of the stadium and run past an entire defense with a blistering 4.35 second 40. After the hapless Oakland Raiders decided to pass on Calvin and select Jamarcus Russell with the first overall pick, the Lions were handed the best receiver in the draft class at number 2 with the humble anti-diva who seemed almost too good to be true in Calvin Johnson. Calvin didn't come with baggage, and as it is shown in college by choosing Georgia Tech based on academics over other Power 5 schools, Johnson cared about more than just the game, a trait that endeared him to every front office. Many viewed Calvin Johnson as the most can't-miss prospect to ever test at the scouting combine. After being selected number 2 overall by the Lions, the early buzz around camp was that Calvin was everything that he was advertised. A seemingly uncoverable wide receiver, faster than anyone on the field, who could jump the 40-plus inches that his vertical advertised at the combine. The physical freak was also a gentle giant and more humble than any superstar with his gifts would be. The quiet Johnson was also remaining quiet about lingering injuries he'd been nursing from almost day one. A back issue would plague him throughout the year, and by the end of year 1, Johnson was already up to taking 2 Vicodin after every game just to get through the season. He also admitted to smoking weed after every game to deal with the pain. Despite the pain, Calvin Johnson, nicknamed Megatron by his teammates, was as unstoppable on the field as advertised despite the injuries that were working to keep him off of it. In Season 2 for Calvin Johnson, he led the league with 12 touchdowns, but unfortunately the Lions would go winless, and Calvin, being the team player that he is, said his achievements mean nothing if the Lions are losing games. Luckily, when you're winless, you usually get the top pick, which came in the form of a strong-armed Matt Stafford. Although they'd go on to only win 2 games in his first season while both of them battled injuries, there was promise in Detroit for the first time in a while. Stafford and Megatron would go on to have statistical success, with Calvin making it to the Pro Bowl in each season. Entering Calvin's final season, the 6'5" wideout was considered one of the best of the league, if not the best wide receiver in the National Football League. In his 9th and final season, Calvin did nothing to change that narrative by posting 88 catches, over 1,200 yards, and 9 touchdowns. Above the surface, everything seemed just fine. Calvin was his usual dominant self and producing at the highest level as he'd done throughout his short career. Beneath the surface, the often injured wideout who'd battled through injuries was tired of rehabbing and playing hurt for a team that was not winning. Similar to another Lion superstar before him, Barry Sanders, statistical success meant less than team success, and rather than being held captive by a team that couldn't improve and wouldn't trade him, Johnson, like Sanders, decided to shock the world by retiring in his prime. Ask yourself, if you were dealing with bone bruises, 9 concussions, chronic back and knee injuries, and a permanently crooked finger, when Calvin would complain about the injuries, the Lions would just throw opioids at him, and Calvin wasn't a big fan of that. He didn't like taking pills as it was, or what they were potentially doing to his body, so he opted to smoke weed instead. Calvin was actually ready to walk away from the league prior to the 2015 season and claimed that getting out of bed each day was an adventure for him due to the nagging injuries and rigors of playing in the National Football League, but he just forced himself to continue. The final straw may have come after Calvin admitted to playing with a concussion in a game in 2012, but the Lions made him come out and apologize and change the word concussion in his statement to avoid trouble. Knowing that it's a business and feeling like the Lions didn't really care about Calvin Johnson, the person, the writing was on the wall for Calvin Megatron Johnson to retire and shock the league for some time. Nowadays, Megatron still pulls for his fellow Lions players, but there's still bad blood between himself and the organization. Some of that bad blood might have come from the organization coming after Johnson's signing bonus after he retired, a move that was technically within their rights, but was it really the right thing to do with someone who literally devoted their body to your organization? This might just be how the Lions do business, like a business, considering they did the same exact thing to the first ballot Hall of Famer and arguably the best running back to ever play the game, Barry Sanders, after his premature retirement. Calvin Johnson said that he doesn't really watch football anymore, but he does keep tabs on his former teammates and still cares for the game. The league may have made Megatron retire from the game he loved, but he still gives back. He runs an annual camp back in his hometown, just like he's been doing since he came into the league. Calvin isn't hard-pressed for money after making 9 figures during his playing days and investing in multiple real estate and business ventures. Being how Calvin has been out of the league for 5 years, and there's now Hall of Fame discussions about whether or not he will get into the Hall or be a first balloter like the many great wide receivers and players before him, but Megatron says he doesn't care when he gets in or if he's a first ballot talent in the people's eyes because he knows he's a beast and was the best wide receiver when he was playing. Calvin has a point. From the time that he was drafted by Detroit until the time of his untimely retirement, Megatron was on a historic pace, on a dwindling team that makes his feats of owning 9 NFL records and 16 Detroit Lions records that much more impressive. Anyone ever questioning his dominance can just look at the stretch from 2011 to 2013, where he was a first-team All-Pro and put together a 3-year stretch as good as any player to ever play the sport, regardless of position. Now that he's not torching D-backs, Calvin is spending his retirement away from football. But he did flirt with the spotlight in 2016 after finishing 3rd in Dancing with the Stars. He's also opened up a medical marijuana dispensary and is teaming up with Harvard to study the effects of cannabis on CTE. How do the Lions feel about Calvin Johnson today? While many of the team are still wondering what could have been if he would have stayed with the franchise or if the franchise would have brought in more talent, others are angry at how he retired. A simple statement from the organization announcing that one of the best athletes to ever put on a Lions jersey, or any jersey for that matter, is retiring from the game. Calvin Johnson then released a statement thanking the team and the fans, but it was non-ceremonious and he left the diehards who couldn't accept his retirement reeling. If people were paying close enough attention, they'd have taken Calvin's statements 2 months before announcing his retirement seriously. Calvin said he was going to take time and evaluate things before deciding on his playing future. Many just chalked that up to off-season talk and not being excited about another off-season and training camp. Calvin said his farewells, and he meant them, and left a bitter taste in the mouths of fans everywhere. The classy Calvin said he loved being a Lion and wished them well. But after making it official, Calvin had a different tune about the organization, saying that he didn't like how he was treated on the way out, but that it was what it was and that he wasn't tripping. This didn't stop fans from tripping and only added to the confusion and shock of his sudden retirement. Johnson later gave a more raw accounting of the reason for his exit by saying, "I didn't see any chance for them to win a Super Bowl at that time. And for the work I was putting in, it didn't make any sense for me to keep beating my head against the wall and not going anywhere." He capped that statement off by saying it was the definition of insanity. I mean, can you really blame him? In the 9 seasons that Calvin Johnson was a Lion, they only went to the postseason twice. The team refused to put any talent around him after being injured for the duration of his career. Calvin was experiencing a kind of frustration that most of us just couldn't understand. When asked if he would have liked to play anywhere else, Calvin basically said that he would, but the Lions weren't planning on trading him. If you ask most Lions fans, any scorn for Calvin quickly turned into scorn for the organization that held him hostage and kept him from even coming close to sniffing a Lombardi trophy. Despite Calvin hoping for them to build around him, the Lions never brought in the type of talent they needed to compete and essentially rolled the same team out there year after year with Calvin Johnson as their star and hoping they could get over the hump. In the year that Calvin Johnson broke Jerry Rice's single-season receiving yard record, the Lions only won 4 games. If you were one of the best to ever play the game, would you want to keep putting your health and your well-being on the line for an organization that treated you like you were just another employee? Well, that answer was simple for Calvin. Okay, that does it for our exploration of Calvin, Megatron, Johnson, and the mega retirement that made millions scratch their heads. So what do you think about the Lions' handling of their uber-talented superstar? Is it the Lions' fault that Calvin Johnson retired? Do you blame Calvin Johnson for his retirement? Let us know by dropping a line down below in the comments section, and if you haven't done so already, do us a favor, like the video, hit the subscribe button, and we'll do our part by keeping you up to date on all things football. Until next time, sports fans, take care.